Howdy. I have an interesting problem I ran into in the shop here, and I'll explain it to you very quickly. That very nice looking Godin LGX on the back of my workshop there, on my workbench, has a pot in it, a push-pull pot. Similar to this. This is not push-pull, but this type of pot. You can see there. And the problem is that the collar nut, here's the collar right here, the threaded section, the collar nut on that is stripped. The collar nut and also the collar. Both, it looks about equally. They still grab a little bit, but they don't grab enough to hold it tight. You tighten it down and then it breaks loose and it gets loose again, and ugh. And I'm glad I didn't keep trying to tighten it down because it's a mess. So anyway, I contacted Godin and asked if they had a replacement. They do not. It's an old part. They do not have a replacement. I asked if I could use a newer, same size, push-pull pot, and they said no. Braun had made their pots for them back then, and it was a specialty made pot, that the push-pull had to do with a mid-range boost or cut. That the pot itself, if I were to show it to you, it has, in fact, I'll show it to you right there. There you go. You can see it has a circuit board attached to it. And it would need to be, the circuit board would need to be removed from this pot. But even then, the pot doesn't have the right specifications. It's a 250K ohm pot, but it's still, anyway, it's got different parameters to it. This is what they said to me. And that you can't just buy a generic one, 250K ohm push-pull and attach the circuit board and everything would be happy again. So I asked, is there anything I can do? And essentially they said, we don't carry it, you're SOL. You know what that means. And, and it's a beautiful guitar. I mean, it really is. You can't see it very well. I'll hold it up a little bit. It has beautiful flame maple on the top. It's just an amazing instrument and plays like a dream. So, what do I do? Do I try to fit it as tight as I can and just leave it? Do I try to, I'm not even sure what I would need to do. I guess I could possibly remove all the threads and hopefully there'd be enough there that I could rethread it for a different collar nut. But that isn't likely, and I could very easily ruin the silly pot in the process. So I came up with a unique idea that I think might work, and that is I'm going to take the collar nut off. There is still some thread on there on the other one. I'm going to take this little collar nut off and I'm going to compress it in my vise just a little bit this way so that it deforms the nut just a little so it'll grab much tighter on two sides of the nut. Then, after I put it on and it's snug, it isn't moving anywhere, I'm going to take just the smallest amount of CA, people you know that is super glue, and just around the wider sides of it, put just a little bit of CA in there, just the tiniest bit, to hopefully fill that little space enough, excuse me, that it won't re-deform the other way and that the threads on both sides will continue to hold. So, we're going to give it a try and I'm going to show you what it looks like doing that here. I'm going to grab it, put it in a vise and film it for you. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken the little collar nut, I put it in my vise here, and I'm just going to tighten it just slightly, just enough so I can start to see it deform. I don't want to tighten it to the point where I crush it. I don't want to do anything like that, so I'm just doing slightly like that, and I can see right now, just from that little bit of a turn, it's deformed it, just slightly made it oblong this way, in this direction. Meaning these two sides of the nut are now going to bite down on that collar. I don't want to do any more than that. I'm going to now loosen it up, drop it out, and I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to try to hold it up so you can see it. Ugh, there we go. You can see it's slightly out of shape, slightly out of round, just very slightly. I'm going to try now putting on the guitar and see what happens. Okay, now we're looking at the Godin LGX pot here that has the loose collar. Here's the little collar nut. And you can see this is the pot that's supposed to be connected. There's I've already put the little washer around the sides here. What we're going to do is just sort of put this on and see if it holds it in place. I just compressed slightly at the sides and it's going on. That's a good sign. And it's on, getting on there pretty snug. Let's see. Ooh, that's pretty close. Okay, that's nice and snug. Now I could leave it like that and hope that the nut here will stay deformed, but I don't think it will. I kind of feel like, excuse me, that it would be better if I were to just put a little bit of CA glue, fill this gap in here just slightly, just enough, and harden that it'll fill the gap and it will make it so that it will stay fitting tightly. So I'm going to take a little CA glue, put it on a little bit of a pick and or it's a very narrow tip, like this little thing right here. I'll put a little in there and just touch it in these areas right here to try to get it to sort of seep in a little bit. Let's see how I go. Let's see if I'm any good at this. Yeah, just a little bit at a time. And I'm going to go all the way around with this because even though I can see the gap on this side a little bit. I can't be sure that's the only bit of gap, so I'm going to just go all the way around. There we go. So I'm just trying to just get the tiniest little bit of CA in there so that when it hardens, it'll fill that gap and not allow the nut to deform and move away from the threads. Well, I think we were successful. The CA is hardened up. The nut seems firm. The volume pot, the push-pull pot, is firmly on the top of the guitar. There doesn't seem to be any wiggle. I would be an idiot at this point to to test it by trying to loosen the nut, so I won't do that. But I will keep an eye on it over the next day or so. I have it here for another day or two. I got to do a full advanced setup on it. So I'll have it here for probably another day, and I'll keep an eye on it and see if it loosens up, but I believe it's going to be fine. It looks like that little fix works. Now, again, I have to reiterate that I would never do this on a guitar that I could replace the pot. If I could replace the pot, I would just replace it. It's no big deal. But this one, according to Godin, is not replaceable. It's not available anywhere, and so I had to somehow find a way to fix it. And by deforming that nut, making it so that the threads on the nut, on two sides of the nut, not all the way around, but at least on two sides, were grabbing into the threads that were left on the collar, and then using a little CA, a little super glue, just to seep in, to just put a little tiny bit. You saw it was ridiculously small amounts, but just enough to get some to sort of move in and fill those empty thread, non-threaded areas so that the nut can't recompress back to, circular and then be loose again. That might have done it. It looks like it has. Only time will tell. Will this last 40 or 50 years? It might. I'm guessing if you were to hit it with a hammer or drop it on the pot, that would be enough to probably break that bond and maybe make that nut loose again. I'm hoping the guy doesn't do that. It's a beautiful guitar, so as long as he doesn't do something radical like run over it with a car or hit it with a concrete block, it probably will be fine. So there you go. A different way to fix that collar if you can't replace the pot. This might be an answer for you. Take care.